always take about 2 weeks at the end of the year to get rested, to kind of pause and reflect, and most importantly, plan my next year like a bank heist. In this episode, I'm going to talk you through my exact process on how I create a strategy and a plan for the new year, and also more importantly for life in general. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? You are watching a very, very special Unstoppable Sunday. I want to talk about exactly how I go about planning out my year. I'm doing that here. This time, I'm in Bali, Indonesia. It's a little bit crazier than I normally do. I'm in a villa, there's a pool. I don't know, I'm going all out this year. It's been good. And I really want to share with you how I go about having really solid years and successful years so that you can grow. For those of you that have been watching this channel for a while, I like to get the most out of every single day, every single week, every single year, but I wasn't always like that. I used to have these Sundays, and these Sundays, they used to roll around, and I would just get that knot in my stomach. I was not looking forward to Monday morning. I was not liking my job, and those existential life questions started to hit me on, what am I even doing? Like, what am I actually doing? And I would roll into Monday, and then before I knew it, I was counting down to the weekend, and then the weekend would come about, and then Sunday again, and I was on this hamster wheel of life, constantly going about, and a year would end, and I would have no idea what I actually accomplished. And that's what I call drifting, and that happened for years at a time for me, not quite sure, am I actually living to my full potential? I try to overcome that angst, that negative feeling, that not knowing of what am I even doing with the obvious things. Number one, I tried drinking heavily with my friends, and that obviously didn't work very well, and I wouldn't recommend it. Number two, I tried making haphazard changes to my life massively. I would just change this, I would change that job, and I would do it without thinking as deeply as I should have about, well, what do I really want? Not just in the next year, but in the next 5 years, and making changes based on that. So massive weird changes didn't really help either. And number three, you've all done this, I know I've done this, I just binge watch Netflix. That moment where on that Sunday where I would start to get that angst, I'd be like, well, let's just watch a TV show, shut off the brain, kind of like ease into Monday, and maybe all my problems will go away. And so needless to say, just binge watching Netflix and watching TV and escaping from reality didn't work either. So eventually I got to a year, and this is the question that you have to ask yourself this coming year. Is this going to be another year where I just drift right through, where I count down from one Sunday to another and not really sure what I'm doing with my life? Or is this going to be a year where I make massive changes? And I eventually came across a year where I said, you know what, enough is enough, I have to make changes. No matter how scary they are, I have to get purposeful, I have to get proactive about how I spend my days, how I spend my life, and what are the big things I want to accomplish, not just in the coming year, but over the next 5 years. I got super focused about that. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. Do you want another year where you're not really accomplishing as much, you're not making more money, you don't have more options in life? Or do you want another year where you increase your income, or you actually go after some big goals and accomplish them, and you massively change how you live your life so that when the Sunday rolls around, you're like, oh my God, let's go do this Monday. I'm super pumped about this week. So everything changed for me once I started to follow this very specific system. I call it the Unstoppable Life Strategy. And a few things started to happen. One, I started becoming happier with my day-to-day. Number two, I knew exactly how I was spending my time, what I was spending my time on, and why. And number three, I started making more money year over year and accomplishing my big goals. And it wasn't crazy things that I needed to do, I just needed to get more proactive. If I could break down my life into two distinct parts, there was the before and there was the after. There was the before, I developed and started incorporating this system, and then there's the after. The before was when I ran around like a madman. I would wake up in the morning and I would be simultaneously brushing my teeth, checking my phone, putting on my pants. It was not pretty. And trying to just like rush into the day. And then there was the after, where I got super proactive about what's important to me, what my morning ritual is, what are my goals for the year, what are my goals for the next 5 years, and reflecting every Sunday about where am I and what do I do next. There's that distinct before and after, and it's no mistake when you actually do a trend line of the key metrics in my life, whatever it may be for you. I have my specific ones. they all went up and to the right when I started to get more proactive about my life. Guess which part of my life yielded my best work? Guess which part of my life made my businesses the most successful? Guess which part of my life made for the most successful years, the growth years? The years where they weren't all perfect, they weren't all painless, but the years where I looked at it at the end of the year and I said, hell yeah, that was a good year. So what is the system? What is this unstoppable life strategy? There's these 5 key parts to it. I'll walk you through it really quickly. So the first part of this unstoppable life planning guide and the strategy is Unstoppable Sunday. I do this every Sunday and it's super straightforward. I just have a Google Doc. Every Sunday I sit down. When you're getting angsty, when you're like, well, I don't really want to go into Monday. What am I even doing with my life? You ask yourself 2 questions and you write it down in a document every Sunday. You ask yourself, number 1, where am I? And number 2, what do I do next? These 2 simple questions start to get you out of the escapism that you'll have. Instead of going and watching Netflix or starting to have a drink, you start to ask yourself like, well, where am I? What am I feeling? What are the things that are bothering me? What are the things that I want to change? What are the things that I'm worried about? And then in the second question, you start to answer, well, what am I gonna do about it? I've got 7 days ahead of me. I've got 7 days. What changes will I make starting today so that I can start to feel better about the things that are bothering me? The next thing that I do, and this is why I'm here in Bali, I didn't really need to be in Bali for this, but I just wanted a very inspiring environment and I just love the energy on this island. The second thing I look at is what is my 1-year plan for the next 365 days. This is not New Year's resolutions. Something like 90% of New Year's resolutions get broken by the time February rolls around. It is horrible. New Year's resolutions do not work. But a 1-year plan, an actual strategy does work. And we walk you through a very specific process. And I do this every year, that after part of my year where everything started changing in my life, I started doing these key things. So my friend Max originally showed me this concept and I've built on that. It's been super, super helpful for me. Number 1, I look at what are the things that I'm thankful for. There are a lot of things that have happened in the past year and you've forgotten about them. And if you just take a moment and say, what are the 5, 10 things that I'm super thankful for from this past year? It's a good way to start to reflect on where you are right now. The second thing we look at is things I'm stressed about. Look, I could be having the best year of my life, but I'll still get stressed. In fact, this was a stressful year for me, but it was still one of my best years. The biggest lie anyone ever told us is that you can get to a point in your life where you have no more problems. That's not true. So there's always gonna be stressors. Let's just acknowledge them. What are the things that I'm stressed about? The third thing I look at is what have I accomplished? What are the big things that I actually got done and I feel really good about? There's more than one thing. I bet you've done a lot. You are super mean to yourself. You're not acknowledging all the big things you've done. List out your accomplishments. And then we go into what were the goals for the last year. I write down my goals every year so that a year later, I can look at them, I can actually hold myself accountable and say, how much did I get done? So actually looking at my goals from the past year and writing out what worked, what didn't, what did I get done, and what do I have to keep working on? And then finally, I set 5 goals for the next year. Now, this is a very broad list. I went through it really quickly. There's a lot more to this. Download the guide if you want to actually walk through it. We give you detailed instructions. The third thing that I do is I create a 365-day proactive calendar. I'm not talking about the calendar that you use in Microsoft Outlook or Google Calendar where everyone else goes in and puts in the stuff they want you to do. I'm not talking about that. We have a special spreadsheet that lays out the 365 days in the coming year. And we actually show you how to map out those 365 days. The reality is we think a year is such a long time. A year is not that long of a time. Here's a box for every month of the year. That's it. And you take out summer, you take out January because everyone's getting started, you take out December because everyone gets distracted. You actually don't have a lot of time in the year. And so when you get that feeling of, oh my God, where did the time go? What did I even accomplish? It's because a year is not that long of a time. So what we help you do is actually map out and get proactive about how you're gonna fill each of these boxes. Are you going home for Thanksgiving? Are you going away for Christmas? Where's your summer break? What are the weddings you've got committed already? Lock those in and then talk about, out of the free boxes that you have, how are you gonna spend your time to go after your goals? The next thing we look at, we look 5 years ahead. Now, the thing is, we all overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And more importantly, if you from 5 years ago met you today, no matter what you think about yourself right now, no matter how hard you're being on yourself about your own goals or what stressors you've got in your life, 5 years ago, that guy or that gal, if they met you today, they would be super proud of you. They'd be like, oh my God, I want to be that person. I guarantee it, because we underestimate how much we can do in 5 years. Now, I have a Google Doc that lays out what I want to be doing over the next 5 years, who I want to be at the end of the 5 years in terms of a vision for myself. And I look at that every year. And we help you create that for yourself as well, so that you can map out and keep iterating on it. You don't have to get it right the first time. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What's the vision for yourself? What are your longer term goals? So you can start to say, all right, for this year, I want to attack these things. And here's how they fit together in my 5-year vision for myself. And then lastly, show me your 5 friends and I'll tell you what you're going to be in 5 years. Meaning, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. If the 5 people you hang out with make $1 a year, you're going to make $1 a year. If they make $1 million a year, you're gonna make $1 million a year. If they are proactive about their lives, you're gonna be proactive about your life. If they are not, you're not. You're gonna be watching Netflix. The last piece that we do is we hook you into a community of people that are growth oriented. Look, I'm not saying you get rid of your friends. No one needs to get rid of their friends or family. Our friends and family, especially the ones that have been with us for a very long time, are super important to who we are and who they make us. You should never cut that off. But if you want to grow, you gotta increase your average. So you gotta start adding some people that are just as growth oriented as you. And so we have an entire community of people, of unstoppable people. Over 1,000 people have downloaded this guide already. So we have an entire community of people that actually are more proactive about their lives, and we wanna hook you into them, because what you need to do is spend more time with people that are being proactive so that you can be proactive about your life. These are the 5 things that I go through. Number 1, practice Unstoppable Sunday. Number 2, have a 1-year plan. Number 3, have a proactive calendar. Number 4, have a 5-year vision for yourself. And number 5, increase your average of the people that you hang out with so you can get more proactive and accomplish bigger things in your life. The reality is you have a decision to make. For the next 365 days, are you gonna have another year where you're just drifting through, counting down weekend to weekend and then dreading Mondays? Or are you actually gonna make changes this year? Are you gonna go after those big goals that you were always afraid of, but now are ready to go and punch in the face? You need to make that decision. You do. And you need to decide you're only given a certain number of years on this planet. Are you gonna be spending it living in a proactive way or in a reactive way? So if you're interested in having one of your best years ever, go click on the link below for our Unstoppable Life Planning Guide, and we'll walk you through this whole process. Most importantly, I want you to know I don't always have years where I rent out a giant villa in Bali and do my yearly reflections. I've had years where I was living off of gift cards with $0 in my bank account, and I sat there in my apartment and I planned out the next 365 days to get me out of that hole. It doesn't matter what circumstances you are. You might have had a great year, you might have had a good year, you might have had the worst year of your life. All that matters is what your next best move is. I truly believe that. And I know that if you can create a strategy for your life and a plan for your life, you can go execute on it. If you've got belief and you've got discipline, then you can become unstoppable. I'll see you next time. Super hot here in Bali, so I gotta